Members, let's reconvene. We're going to move to item 7.2. Item 7.2, which is the community college contribution to jobs and the economy. Vice Chancellor Quinn-Livin.
Thank you. Good morning. Is this on? Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you for spending the next 30 minutes with us to shift mentally to the topic of jobs and the economy and community college contribution to jobs and the economy. If you remember, what I shared last time was that 67% of all voters in California believe that jobs and the economy is the most important issue to them. And so I appreciate this forum to benefit from your guidance and discussion as we focus on the sector of healthcare this time. A little bit of context setting. When former President Clinton at the Clinton Global Initiative America focused on jobs, 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 he laid out a thesis. And the question he challenged the audience was, if America has several million open jobs, why aren't we getting Americans into these open jobs? And if we can't get Americans into these open jobs, businesses will not create more jobs. So then I followed his thinking, and I've been asking myself this question as well. How many open jobs do we have in the healthcare sector, for example? So here, one of the pages I passed out to you is from the website, just one of the websites called Health Jobs Start Here, and it was funded by the California Wellness Foundation, which scrapes all these open jobs in the healthcare field, and that's just for one region. So it's considered a very, very conservative estimate. And it says there over 24,000 or 24,556 open jobs existed in the healthcare field, according to just their website alone, which brings us to the question of what does it take to get Californians into these open jobs? Now, when we make investments, it's not only what is currently open, but also is it going to be worthy of a longer-term set of investments, because our programs do take some time to set up. So as we looked at the profile of the health industry, what we know is it's one of California's fastest growing industries, employs 1.4 million Californians, and is expected to gain 330,000 jobs by the year 2020. And you all are familiar with the, when we talk about healthcare, we most often think about nurses and doctors, but please be aware that 60% of healthcare workers are in the allied health fields. And that is a particularly attractive area for the community colleges, because it is a tier that we train, or we're focused on training. And before I introduce our two guest speakers today, what I wanted to also point out is that as we focus on the healthcare sector, what is it that we can actually do, especially with diminished buckets of funding? So in the past, we've had buckets of funding that came from the WIA system era money, but yet there is actually a new law that came into place recently signed by Governor Brown, and it requires for your local WIBs to spend 25% of their funds on training. So instead of setting up one-stops or doing any of the other types of services, they must spend it on training. So they're looking for training that ties to open jobs. So if you're trying to connect your community colleges back to a stream of funding, that is an opportunity that I think we have yet to fully take advantage of. And then that is an example of what federal policymakers are calling braiding funding streams. So as we look at this healthcare, let's take a look at what does it take to California into open jobs so that we can take advantage of this funding stream. So let me introduce to you our our two practitioners from the field. Linda Zorn, right here to my left, is the statewide initiative director of the Healthcare Workforce Initiative, which is a grant that we fund, so that she can become, she can serve as the lead healthcare expert subject matter for us. She is also co-chair of the North Far North Regional Consortia. So that service delivery area goes from Sacramento north to the Oregon border. So her perspective reflects the northern area. And then Merrick O'Connor comes to us from Golden West College, where she is the Health Workforce Initiative director there. And her perspective covers the LA, Orange County, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. So just an example of some practitioners out in the field. So let me pepper them with starting with some easier questions, and we'll build up to the harder questions. All right, so Linda, there's a general agreement that health is a high growth sector with regards to jobs and the economy. Can you help us understand what are the growth drivers behind the health sectors nationally and in California?
Okay, I'm going to give a couple of examples of some successes that we've had that will probably help you understand this a little bit better. And I'm going to really start with completion. We've been talking about completion quite a bit, but we haven't really drilled down to completion of specific programs. So the data that I'm going to share with you comes right from the Chancellor's Office website. It's the Perkins 4 Core Indicators of Performance by Top Code. It's our planning data for this year. And I'm just going to share some numbers of completion rates, which is our core indicator number 2, completion for allied health. Now, the Top Code 12 is the health top code, and the average completion rate for all allied health is 95.54. Pretty high, isn't it? Let's look at a couple of other areas that I think might be of interest. We'll look at medical laboratory technology, 98.4% completion. We look at respiratory care, 98.33 completion. You've all heard of the rad techs, radiology technology. Their completion is 98.95. Into the more diagnostic areas, diagnostic medical sonography is 96.43. And now the big gorilla, which is nursing. All nursing is 97.64. We look at registered nursing, it's 98.93. So I think that tells a compelling story for us as to how good our completions are in allied health. Now, why is that? And if you look back to what you just talked about this morning with some of those tenets of student success, we've been doing those in allied health for a long time. Let's take nursing. For some of our grants, we require students to take a diagnostic assessment. They do participate in orientations. And they also have an educational plan, which is part of their program. So if you look at why we've been so successful in allied health, some of those same tenets are the things that you're taking into the other areas of student success. So I think that as we contribute to jobs in the economy, we are completing a lot of, our students are completing. We did ask Brenda Fong and our staff in allied health to pull out the numbers of degrees and certificates, and the number we have is for 1011. And we had over 13,100 degrees and certificates in allied health from the community colleges. So right there, we're putting a lot of workers to take those open jobs in the economy. The second program I want to highlight is probably a less well-known program, but it's a program called Welcome Back that was started through our initiative. And by the way, the Health Workforce Initiative is one of those economic and workforce development initiatives that we're hoping that will not sunset, but the legislation will enact us to keep going. The Welcome Back program is known as an International Healthcare Workers Assistance Center. Right now, we have 2 in California that have been associated with our economic development centers in the past, one at City College of San Francisco and one at Grossmont College. And the goal of this program is to take foreign-trained workers in healthcare and be able to bring them back or welcome them back into healthcare. As you know, as these workers come to the United States, they often pursue careers in anything but healthcare, where they can get a job, driving cab, working in a restaurant, etc. So to date, this program has helped these workers validate credentials, pass licensing exams, obtain licenses in their profession, re-enter new health cares, and obtain employment. So to date, over 2,000 of these workers have actually been able to get employment. Now, what does this do for us? Well, first of all, they have to be legal residents, so they have to provide documentation of legal right to work in the United States. So they are California residents. It helps the diversity of the workforce. It helps the population that they're working with. So it's a win-win for our whole population with this Welcome Back program. So I think it's a very unique program. program. It's an award-winning program, and there's very few like it in the whole nation. We're very proud that we've been able to have this kind of a program to show success of what we're doing, to not only increase diversity, but to help the foreign trained health professionals really re-enter and have a good profession in our country and state.
And so these are strategies that we have some credibility in terms of the care field. But in terms of growth drivers of the sector, I understand that the aging workforce, the increasing racial, ethnic, and linguistic diversity, the growing aging population with their changing disease burden, the implementation of the patient protection and affordable care legislation, new practice models for care delivery, such as retail, school, and work-based clinics, advances in health information technology, and the geographic maldistribution of workers causing shortage in some areas and surplus in others are among the key trends that are affecting the healthcare industry. So that if we're making investments, these are investments that will be needed and will manifest over multiple years versus being a one-year investment. So thank you for sharing some of the successful strategies so far. But Linda, in addition to the labor market data and website postings as these in terms of open jobs, you also have multiple employer advisory bodies established to give feedback on the state of the health workforce. Now tell us where the health workforce pipeline needs the most attention, according to them.
That's an easy answer because we've been hearing from them for many, many years. When we talk to our hospital partners and our industry partners, there's two prime areas that they are crying for workers: laboratory and diagnostic services. So when I say laboratory, that means your CLSs, your clinical laboratory scientists, which we do not train in community colleges, but we do train a worker called the MLT, which is a medical laboratory technician. And we are just working on getting more programs across the state underway in the MLT area. So that is a huge need for our hospital partners. The other area, when I say diagnosis, it's things like our rad techs, our radiological technologists, diagnostic medical sonographers, and all of the new modalities that, if any of you have been to the hospital, are involved with nuclear medicine, PET scans, MRIs, all those kind of modalities. Between laboratory and the diagnostic, between 95 and 98% of our illnesses are diagnosed between those two services. So it's a very, very important part of our hospital services. And we are constantly talking with our hospital council, our hospital associations, about what can we do to increase those programs and increase the pathways onto the CSUs and UCs that have, for example, the clinical laboratory science program and the higher levels. So we've had work groups across the state working on these shortages and have actually, between our HWI services, have actually added programs in several places throughout the state. So we're quite proud of the work that we have done, but need to continue to do to address these shortage areas.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mary. So when people talk about health, they often think about nursing, but nursing is one of many subsets in the health field. So there's allied health careers, health IT careers, health administrator careers. But let's for a moment stay on the area of nursing. So I had heard very conflicting information about nursing. And is it true that nurses can't find jobs?
Actually, no, it's not true. The whole idea, and the media have kind of blown this up, that the nursing shortage is over, and that's far from the truth, because this is a timing issue, it's an economic issue, and it's a geographic issue. The recent data that we have for the state, this was third quarter 2011, statewide, that there are still nearly 6,000 jobs open for registered nursing. And again, it's a little less in some areas, a little more. The vacancy rate for Southern California, for my region, is 5%. The issue is not so much that that they're not finding jobs, it's that they're not finding jobs in the time frame that they were used to. In previous years, new grads would have jobs before they even graduated. And now it may take them 3 to 6 months to find a job. Well, that's pretty average for a new graduate from any kind of a program looking for employment. So there are new graduates getting jobs. There are many openings for experienced nurses. One of the things that our initiative has done, and particularly my center, is to assist the new graduate nurses to become more marketable by providing the new grad RN transition program. What this is that my grant at Golden West College partners with other community colleges and with employers in the area to provide a 12-week program where the new graduate who has obtained their RN license can get 12 weeks of experience in a local hospital and then hopefully get an employment offer from that hospital, or if not at that hospital, makes them more marketable to go to other hospitals because they have an additional postgraduate clinical experience with a one-on-one preceptor. We completed a program with 5 community colleges that the Health Workforce Initiative grant supported, and we had a 72% hire rate from that summer program. We're just now completing the one from fall. We don't have all the statistics, but it looks like it's going to be probably close to 60-65% hire rate for the fall program. So we're very excited that we're able to provide that kind of opportunity to have direct job assistance to our new graduates that are having a little bit more difficulty than they're used to.
Well, I appreciate you sharing sort of the heavy lifting that community colleges have to do in order to help people get into open jobs. Now, let's take another example. I saw that there are 443 open certified nursing assistants on that website, and this is, I understand, an individual that's not only has a training, but has to have their skill sets validated, in other words, certified, as a prerequisite for hiring. So I understand that you open up these regional testing centers to actually certify nursing assistants. How did this strategy help get these candidates into open jobs?
Okay, yes, the California requires that nursing assistants be certified, and this is legislation through the California Department of Public Health, the CDPH. And so in order to qualify for a job, they have to complete both a written exam and a manual skills test. So what we have done is provided opportunities for them to go to various testing sites throughout, I'll speak most to my region, Southern California, where we have I think probably 50 different test sites that they can go to, all the way from the Mexican border all the way up through the Los Angeles area, that our office, in fact, that's one of the things that I do as part of my grant operations, can register for them for the test. We collect their fees. We set them up with a site. And then their opportunity to test sooner after they've completed their programs allows them to be more successful and get employment earlier. In our state, there are 2 organizations that provide the testing, and that's the Red Cross and our program. And the Red Cross now probably only has about 30% of the numbers for testing, and they have very few test sites in the state. They have, I'm sure for financial reasons as well, cut back on the number of providers that they have to allow for the CNAs to test. So we opened up, and this was I think 15 years ago, as part of actually an original Chancellor's Office grant, to start this process to provide more opportunities, more locations, more days, more times, so that the CNAs can get into that job market more quickly. If we don't have that opportunity for them, they could wait anywhere from 3 to 6 months just to complete the testing after their program. And then again, it takes a little while for them to actually get their certificate. But we really provide a service that they can test in a timely manner and be a place that's, they don't have to travel so far, because these are lower level healthcare workers. They don't have the means to travel great distances to get to the testing. So that's one of the services that we provide.
So, Mary, if the industry is beginning to push for more certification because it's trying to protect itself in terms of staff quality and patient safety, is this model generalizable?
It is. I think the issue with generalizable certifications is, like we've been talking earlier, it's a budget issue. It costs a lot of money to initiate a new certification process. So I guess I don't see it happening in the near future unless our budget crisis goes away. But yes, the way we do regional testing certainly is generalizable.
Okay. All right. So last question before I open it up to the board is this question of candidate quality. So too often in the world of education, we assume that a student who completes a program of study is a quality candidate, right? They spent the time doing that program. But how do employers define quality, and how would you advise colleges to do better at delivering a quality talent pool that meets the expectations of the employers?
Well, I think we've already talked about a couple of those items in that nursing is a little different. There is some legislation that allows that diagnostic assessment ahead of time, and that really enables the programs to enroll a higher quality student. And Mary talked about the nurse transition program. Those are things we're doing. We're also working on some pilot projects with the Lieutenant Governor's office that are driven by industry to help improve that candidate quality. And if I could take a minute just to highlight a couple of those. Sacramento City College is really working on a project to create, implement, and promote a model program to actually accelerate degree and certificate completion. In order to do that, we have to do what we're calling accelerate in basic skills, accelerate readiness. So they're working on some stackable prerequisite packages, a common prerequisite package, and we have heard that from industry time and time again. They would love us to have the same prerequisites for all of our allied health programs across all the districts. Well, we know that that's not going to happen, but if we can get Los Rios as one district to pilot that stackable project, we might make some progress. And then as they do that, they would have cohorts that would work through that particular program, and embedded in that some individualized kinds of programs. So that's one of our pilot projects. The second one is at Saddleback College, and this project is going to be an innovative health career readiness program or a boot camp that will focus on foundational skills that are critical to student success in allied health. And so we're looking at some of we heard the same things as we inventoried our state. What industry wanted our students to be better prepared initially with math, reading the same things that you're hearing from the Student Success Task Force. So we're piloting some programs very specific to allied health with some grant funding that we had available. Another part of this is our Health and Science Pipeline Initiative project, in which we improve the science readiness of our high school students by integrating medical biology, medical physiology and anatomy, medical math. At the high school level, we have better test outcomes, better prepared students once they reach our level. So those are some pilot things we're doing to help with the readiness.
And one of the things that our initiative has done is actually to fund the actual lab kits for high school science faculty, because as you know, K through 12 has funding issues as well. And so we are able to actually fund those lab kits so they can take those recommendations from the Health and Science Pipeline Initiative into their classroom and actually be able to implement. A lot of the times we have great ideas about, oh, we could do this or we could do that, but there's no money to implement. And so one of the things that our health initiative does is to help provide funding for those types of projects.
I think good point.
So I'd like to turn it over to the board for any question. I think you can see the level of complexity required to actually get candidates to the point where they can fill open jobs. So what are the thoughts that occur to you?
Chancellor Scott, followed by Member Izumi, Member Reed, and Member McDougall.
First, I want to compliment all three of you for a great report. I really found it fascinating, and thank you for doing it. I was very impressed with that statistic on completion. And I used to, and now I'm even better armed than I was before. But as you say, it says the value of somebody identifying what it is they're going to do. And that's why the Student Success Task Force has recommended that individuals select a program of study after 1 year or after 3 terms. Now, the interesting thing about that is with 95.54% in the allied health field, I believe you said, what's the denominator? I mean, That's a tremendous completion rate, but what I'm trying to find out is it somebody who enters that program or somebody who completes a certain number of units, or what is the denominator in, you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do hear what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I think they have to have completed, is it 12?
12 units. And a lot of the certificate programs are shorter programs, and then there are the degree programs as well. So I think they do lump those into one statistic.
Okay, so what you're saying is that when somebody like in nursing, you gave a
Right.
certain statistic there in nursing, I've kind of forgotten it. but-
98.95%.
But that's only those who complete 12 units. In other words, if there's a dropout between 0 units and 12 units, they're not part of the denominator.
I think that's
I
correct.
believe that's correct, but we can check on that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well,
Right.
anyway, thanks again for the excellent report.
Member Azumi.
I also would like to echo the Chancellor's, no. Oh, okay. I'd also like to echo the Chancellor's thanks. Appreciate the presentation, Vice Chancellor and Ms. Zorn and Ms. O'Connor. And I especially like the Q&A meet the press format. Liven things up, on the second day here at the meeting. I was actually curious about, Ms. Zorn, about the Welcome Back program. I just had a few questions about that, just background, really.
Sure.
You said that a lot of the foreign workers who have healthcare training will choose a field, anything else but healthcare related. I was, wondering why that was, and a couple other follow-up questions would be, how wide a gap is there between foreign healthcare systems and those here in the United States?
Okay.
I mean, and finally, for those people who go through the Welcome Back program, are there particular fields that they tend to concentrate in?
Yes, thank you. The reason that when they first come to the United States, they don't go to health is they don't think they can. And so they look for any job they feel they can be qualified for, which is usually not health. And so until these assistance centers actually came into existence, they didn't know what was possible for them to get back into health. And the systems are very different. You take medical education, it's very different. And most doctors that have been trained in another country find it very difficult to become a physician here. They have to, in most cases, redo their whole residency program. So it's very difficult. We find that a lot of those physicians actually try nursing and other modalities. So I would say nursing is
probably is the one they go into most frequently.
Popular, they go into most frequently. So what these assistant centers do is they bring their transcripts, say they came from Poland, I just make that up, or Czechoslovakia. They bring their transcripts in, and the assistant centers review them and look at what they might be most aligned to. They do some assessments on what they're interested in and match them up. Oftentimes they're missing a course or two, and that's where it can be challenging to find a college that will actually just let them take their PEDS part of their nursing program, or Med Surg 4 or whatever. So it can be a juggling act to make that fit. But I would say nursing is by far the most popular one, and we get most of the foreign trained professionals into nursing.
So just one quick follow-up is that, so it doesn't really matter that a person comes from what we would consider an industrialized country versus
Correct.
non-industrialized.
Correct.
Just because they come from an industrialized
Correct.
country doesn't mean that they
No.
would have a similar type of medical
Correct.
background.
We have to look at their transcripts and what path they took to that degree, and then we help them from there.
Right. And the other thing, they have to be introduced to the whole American medical system,
Correct.
which is totally different than any other system in the whole world. So the Welcome Back Center provides that for them so that they can have a foot up in recognizing what the differences are and how they can then overcome any barriers that they may have been presented with.
Thank you very much.
Member Reed.
I understand that the attrition rate is very high in nursing, that after 3 to 5 years that we see as many as 50% of the nurses, quitting the profession. And is there anything being done in that area to address that issue?
Right now, statewide, it's 16% is the attrition rate in community college programs, and that has come down over the years. When we first started the WIA grants back in 2005 or so, and we doubled enrollments, we did see attrition rates increase. And that's why we implemented a number of student success measures that Mary can probably talk about. And over the years, we have worked very hard to bring that attrition rate back now. So it's an average of 16% statewide in nursing programs.
I think you were, Charlie, addressing, though, the attrition rate after being employed. Is that what you were talking about?
After being
Yes,
employed?
after being employed,
I'm
that
sorry.
they leave the profession in 3 to 5 years. There are a lot of initiatives, not so much from the community colleges, but with employers, and community colleges being part of their advisory groups for how to improve workplace environments to allow for the support of particularly new graduate nurses. And that's another reason for the transition programs, is that this provides a support mechanism for these new graduates to become more confident and competent, and the actual employer providing a support system for them. Because oftentimes I think that the new graduate is overwhelmed by just the job in, particularly in nursing. That's what I can address mostly, with the workplace environment. There is so much responsibility, physical, mental stress, and I think that when they have more support from the employer and improved work environments, we may begin to see more retention in the workplace.
50%
Do they have
was.
any requirement in the nursing profession to have professional development after they?
Oh,
yes,
yes.
yes, yes. They need to have 30 hours over 2 years for their renewals. So yes, that is a requirement in the state of California, not everywhere.
Just a quick follow-up to Member Reed's, and just a quick answer, please. Have studies identified a couple main factors in such a high non-retention rate, or why folks are leaving?
In the employer
In
area,
the employer,
In the employer area.
It's not really as high as they say either. It's not 50%.
no, I don't think it's 50%.
It's
But
quite
there
low.
are several work groups, particularly around the state, with the new committees with.
So have they identified them or not?
Specifically, I'm not sure. I don't think I can answer that.
All right.
There's a whole new group nationwide working on promotion of the nursing profession, and they are looking at those aspects of lifelong learning and retention in the profession. So
Okay.
I don't know that there's been any one study that's looked at that factor
Great.
individually.
Thank you. Member McDougall.
Two quick questions. First one is with the financial challenges that our colleges have faced, and given the high cost of most allied health programs, have we seen a diminution in the breadth and depth of our allied health programs in the system? That's question number one. Question number two has to do with the issue of ADN versus BSN and national accrediting agencies and local hospitals that are looking for preferred accreditation. Has this tended to have any consequences
Yeah, you
for the
might-
California community colleges? If so, what, if anything, might
Yes.
be
Yes.
the response to it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the part of your first question. With the budget situation, clearly courses and programs are being reduced. So many nursing programs are going from their expansion levels and cutting that back to their pre-expansion levels. So we are seeing a decline in the numbers of students that can be enrolled in nursing programs, as in other allied health programs. I haven't seen programs actually closing yet. So I think the message we're trying to say is, like, let's keep the doors open, let's maintain what we're at. We're not adding anything new. So as we have all of the new industry needs from the Accountable Care Act, our message is we're really challenged to add new programs to meet your needs, but we're trying to maintain what we have. So I know that we've reduced enrollments. We haven't actually closed many programs yet. So that's the good news. Mary, do you want to address?
Yeah, I'll address the ADN to BSN issue. The hospitals do prefer to have a bachelor's degree nurse. In California, that's a huge challenge because 72% or higher of 80% of our nursing graduates are from associate degree programs, primarily from community colleges. With legislation with AB 1295, we are in the midst of getting collaborative programs with our four-year universities to be able to increase the number of bachelor-prepared nurses. There is a new national initiative for the future of nursing, and the California Action Coalition, which both Linda and I are very much involved in. There is an initiative that we will have 80% of working nurses have a bachelor's degree by 2020. So these collaborative programs are extremely important so that they can go from our community college programs directly into a four-year university program to get their bachelor's degree with reduced barriers so that they don't have to repeat programs, and we can streamline that process. And so community colleges are very much involved in that.
I'd just like to add two other points. There's a very practical implication that's happening for some of our nursing programs. In certain parts of the states, hospitals are only allowing the BSN programs access to the clinical experience. So that is a problem in some areas. And the second part is that we're in the very initial stages of working on a TMC or a transfer model curriculum in nursing. And so there are some very positive things that we're doing to really respond to the industry need. There are some hospitals that are trying to achieve what's called a magnet status, and if they are achieving that, and that might be what you're familiar with because it is much in the southern part of California, they need to have a very high percent of their nurses have BSNs, if not all of them. So.
Well, the obvious concern is that the ADN program has been one of the, if you will, star programs
Yes.
of the community
Yes.
college
Yes.
system. And I think there's tremendous pressure on diminishing them because of this BSN thrust. And I concur, starting the collaborative programs is important, but what it does for the potential entrant is it says if I can get into a BSN program immediately, that's what I'm going to do because it's going to be, if you will, quicker or more assured that I'm going to get to that end. So I'm just concerned
But there
about
aren't
it.
enough bachelor's programs in the state to be able to put out
Not
enough
at this
nurses.
point, but as you know, you're seeing a increase in some of them within the CSU system.
Some. They haven't increased as much as proprietary schools have, and that is one of our concerns with the debt load that a student will leave a proprietary program with, when there might be some things that we can do with some more creative approaches with a community college and a UC or a CSU approach. So, so there's a lot of work going on in this area.
Right.
A lot of work.
Good.
Member Ramos, then Member Maliomed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if I can ask a different kind of question that I do think has bearing on this matter of employability and placement. Obviously, the demographics of our state are changing radically, even among the aging population, which is probably the most important service population for the nursing profession, and among childbearing women and other major population groups that would be front and center for this professional class. So to what extent are we seeing, if at all, employers in the healthcare delivery fields that would hire nurses being mindful of the need to have cultural versatility as part of the equation in the hiring proposition, which, if it is in play and growing as a concern, it seems to me, given the demographics of our student populations, would be a competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
Is that a line of
Absolutely.
logic that makes sense to you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely correct. The industry is, as in any other area, trying to match the demographics of their patients with their employees. So that's a very big ask from industry that we increase our diversity. And you're absolutely right that our students meet that need for them much greater than any other system. So you're absolutely correct in that.
Thank you.
So the community colleges have an advantage there because we have a much more diverse population than do the other systems.
Member Maliomed.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I am a practicing physician, and my question is, I know there are all these other fields. You don't have to be a doctor or a nurse. So what are our community colleges doing to encourage students to even think about these fields that they had no idea existed? And I'll also mention that I did speak with Nancy Shulock last night, who's a researcher, and she mentioned that a lot of the problems they've found are the counselors, that they're not encouraging these kind of fields. So that's my question, and I just want to add a footnote. People don't think about this too much, but you can end up in the veterinary field with a lot of these, because I have seen people from my hospitals who are ultrasound technicians in my high-tech animal hospitals. So that might entice a lot of people for that aspect too.
I'll start out and then I'll let
Okay.
Mary take over. Our initiative, the Health Workforce Initiative, recognized this years ago that we were putting a lot of effort into nursing, but what about the other allied health fields? So we developed on our website this directory of health occupations that one can click on, and then you can either browse by programs or college. So it allows students to explore a variety of different health occupations and professions other than nursing. And we've also developed a series of brochures that we use with our K-12 partners, and that's a lot of what we do within our CT transitions programs in healthcare. I just forgot what I was going to say, so I'll let you go on. I
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'll
Okay.
get you later.
I just want to say, too, with our initiative, we have all of our initiative centers have great partnerships with our high school medical careers academies. And so we financially support them as well as serve on their advisory groups to make sure that the high school students, and now even down into the middle school, have a knowledge of all the different opportunities that are out there. And many of us do little speaking things at whenever they have conferences. I know I'm supporting one coming up very soon in the Inland Empire directed at counselors. You had mentioned that counselors sometimes don't really know how to direct those students into these various health careers. And so we're going to be doing presentations to help them get the knowledge that they need to be able to recommend these pathways to their students.
One other thing I wanted to add is that when nursing became very popular and the wait lists got very long, we started to think, well, maybe some of these students might be better suited for other professions. So we started to work with the wait list and encouraging students to think about other allied health careers. So, and think about, do you really want to be a nurse? Maybe you want to be a rad tech or respiratory therapist. So we did work within those parameters of telling students, you can sit on the wait list for nursing for 10 years, or you can get into the respiratory therapy program tomorrow. So there was work and kind of working together with colleges and trying to get students into something that might match their careers or their needs a little bit better. And as far as the counselors, we are trying to work on more of an assessment-based approach to incorporate all the other allied health. So there is work being done, but certainly progress to be made. So I think that's an excellent point to raise.
Well, and as you talk, it makes me realize maybe this is one of those ways we can reach out to K through 12 and start
Exactly.
aligning everything. So that sounds exciting. And thank you, Vice Chancellor, for this presentation.
Last comment, Member Berg.
Thank you. I used to be the Dean of the School of Health, City College of San Francisco.
Member Berg,
okay.
can you speak into your?
Sorry, I used to be the Dean of the School of Health, City College of San Francisco. I would say to you that the program is very, very heavily impacted. And we don't have enough wherewithal to get the students into the classes because the waiting list is very long. We actually had to go to a lottery, which was terrible, and people would wait 3 and 4 years to get into those classes. And on top of that, there's not enough clinical placements.
Right.
Every single program in the community college system, let's just take the Bay Area, there are a lot of them, we all go for the same hospital placement and clinical placement, and you cannot complete that program without having adequate clinical placement. So I would say probably you don't want to do a lot of encouragement into the nursing programs because out of high school. We do meet with the high schools and the junior high schools, and with a heavy emphasis on math, by the way, in the junior high schools, because that's really what they need. But I would say that it's a wonderful profession, and our experience has been that people drop out of the profession because it's very hard work.
It is very hard work.
Very hard work.
I am a nurse, and I can verify that.
So, and that's been our experience, but encouraging people to go, more people to go into nursing, I think probably is not the wisest idea. I think maybe you want to find out what the market looks like, because it's a promise without a completion, and it's problematic. And in terms of foreign nurses and their skills, we deal with, we have a special program, and most of the colleges do, I think, have special programs in retraining. And I will give you just one short example. We had a Russian nurse who was put in a clinical placement in San Francisco, and she took the hypodermic needle and put it in her pocket. And everyone said, well, what are you doing? She said, well, that's what we do in Russia.
Yeah.
Right.
I said, no, no, you can't do that here. So they do need retraining. They're just different, the differences. But these are the problems with the nursing programs, and I think it's very good to take them and redirect into the other health programs where they don't have to have clinical placements. And so what you're suggesting, I think, is exactly accurate. And thank you for your presentation.
Chairman Himmelston, I'd like to wrap up. Thank you very much for the range of very sophisticated questions. And I hope it occurs to you as it occurs to me, if we're going to meet the challenge of jobs in the economy, the range of sophisticated programming that we have to do to get our population into these open jobs is a challenge. And so we continually have to deal with the tension of the fact that these are higher cost programs, and how do you support the field to continually focus on what the labor market needs, and keeping alive these higher cost but highly valuable programs. So I thank you for the time and to be ambassadors of this area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation.